Welcome, Laker fans, to a special preview video. We have a guest, Charlie Walter, host of Locked On Warriors, joining us. Obviously, big matchup. Want the preview from the experts. So I had Charlie on. Thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Most excited I've been for a game all year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was just about to get into that. It feels like every time the Lakers and Warriors play, it's LeBron, Curry. It's unreal what both of them are still doing. You touched on Curry dropping 52 the other night against Memphis. Is just ridiculous how this is still happening. Looking at these teams and they major changes. Jimmy Butler heading the Warriors, Luka head the Lakers. These teams haven't played since then. How do you think it kind of plays out differently, or how these teams' outlooks have changed halfway through the year?
Yeah, last time we saw it, it was the buffer, and then the time before it was Christmas Day. So Warriors, Lakers, right there, neck and neck when they played with their old rosters, and then we haven't seen them with the new ones because last time it was truly after the trade was made, but none of the players actually suited up. They were just on the sidelines. So we truly don't know. All we can point to right now as Warrior fans is the fact that they continue to get W's. It's not always pretty. They've won a lot of games where they've shot horribly, and then they barely sneak past the Memphis Grizzlies when they get 45 in the first quarter and 32 first half points from Curry, 52 in the game, and a great defensive effort from Draymond Green and a Butler scoring game. So when you look at it that way, it's like, I don't know. Until the Warriors consistently take down some of these top teams, you won't know. And this is the biggest test to where we can start to feel like we know what the Warriors are entering the playoffs, because as of right now, it's a team that's won a ton of games with Curry and Butler on the floor. It's a team that when one of those guys goes off the floor has not been good at all as of late. But they also haven't played the greatest competition in the NBA. But you are who you beat that's up on your schedule. And the Warriors have done a ton of that lately. I believe it's 19-2 with Curry and Butler on the floor. Don't quote me on it, but just the fact that it's in that ballpark is all you need to know.
Yeah, I was watching your video. You say 5 total losses since like February 8th. I mean, it's insane how the Western Conference is so stacked, where these teams are all winning and not really moving up the standings. But looking at from the Warriors kind of in depth, Jimmy Butler has come over and really kind of inserted himself into the lineup, but not really. I saw a thing where he didn't ask Steve Kerr to draw him up plays, just kind of put him in the lineup and let him work. Do you think he becomes more of the primary number 2 scorer in the playoffs, or is it still kind of Steph's team and it's just Jimmy kind of gets in where he can?
Man, I'll tell you this much. Every person I know that follows the Sixers or that follows the Heat a lot closer than I do and watches every game and then sees what it looked like when it flipped over to playoff mode says this is kind of what he does, right? He's a little bit of a silent assassin. He's a great player in the regular season. He distributes. He takes what the game gives him. He usually makes the smart basketball play. But sometimes you wish that, he would take the 3-footer instead of kicking it to the corner, unless it happens to be a corner Steph Curry 3, like we saw in that Memphis game where he was continuously making the right decisions. But if the team's not scoring the ball, it's like, Jimmy, you got to go get his. And unfortunately, I think he's maybe scored 30 once, if that, for the Warriors. It's been a lot of, 18, 22, but very efficient. And he gets the free throw line to do it as well. So that has helped the Warriors in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, the question is, has Father Time caught up to that part of the game to where he can go out and not only get you, 30, but get you 40? Is he someone that can realistically get you 40 multiple times in a playoff if you need it, like he was able to do a couple years ago? And that answer, we don't really know yet. He didn't play in the playoffs last year. We didn't get to see a playoff Jimmy. Last time we saw him was a couple of years ago, and when we did see him, he was still that guy.
Yeah, I don't know what you think. I really like that because it feels like people discredit the Lakers and the Warriors a little bit in the sense of maybe the Oklahoma City's the more complete team or Denver's done it. But with the Lakers, Luka and LeBron, and then Jimmy and Steph, it's hard pressed to find 4 players that are more clutch in playoff times than those 4. And I think that kind of gets slept on a little bit when you head into playoffs because these 4 are going to be hell to get out in a 7-game series.
It's hard to, until you see the tide completely turn, it's just hard to picture it. Like Oklahoma City has the best record in the NBA. They've been terrorizing the Western and Eastern Conference. They're like, 15 games up on the Rockets or 15 games up on the Warriors, whatever it may be. Like it's crazy right now. with the separation that they formed throughout this year. But still, as a betting man, if you gave me, Warriors and Thunder, and you gave me plus 200 odds or something that made me salivate, like I'm probably going to hammer the Warriors. Like they've beat them multiple
Yeah.
times this year. Aside from Shea, there's not, I mean, Jalen Williams is a dog, don't get me wrong, but that's a matchup that, Draymond can somewhat handle as compared to like a Jokic that feels a little more difficult, or LeBron, who's just been dominant against the Warriors over the years. So it's like Draymond said after the King series, and granted, and that was 2022, 2023. And granted, they lost to the Lakers, and did not go anywhere the following season. But he said, don't be so quick to write off some of these guys like LeBron and Steph Curry and the Warriors and the Lakers and all these teams for these new players like Ja and Shea and Luka. And, now Luka's on the Lakers.
Yeah.
And he's got a point to it. It's like, let's see it in action. Let's see the Warriors and the Lakers and some of these more veteran teams when it comes down to a 7-game series. Let's see the Oklahoma City Thunder basically kick them to the curb and say, hey, we're going to be the next great team. We're going to be a little bit of a dynasty ourselves, because they have, draft capital and money to spend and aren't paying their great players that much. Like they're in a great spot. But there have been many young teams that have been in good spots over the years that you felt like was going to be that next iteration. And then Curry, LeBron, Kobe before him, whoever it may be, proves that, the old guys, that they could play a little ball.
Yeah, it feels like the NBA, people were so quick to just kind of write the old guard off. And it feels like the New England Patriots a little bit for a long time there. It was like, Brady's old. They don't have the receivers, all this stuff. And yet
they're old. I mean, they're old.
They are old.
Wrong.
They are old.
Eventually, it's got to end, and it could be over for both these teams. But it's just like, don't write them off. They're not.
Yeah,
they're not sneaking into the 9 seed or something along those lines. Like the Warriors are the hottest team in basketball pretty much. And the Lakers have Luka Doncic and LeBron James. So
yeah, it's going to be super exciting. One thing I want to touch on that I always think is the underrated part of the Warriors that people don't talk about enough is how great the organization's really drafted the last few years, and how, Kuminga, 22 years old, Moses Moody, 22, Podziemski, 22, Santos, 22, Post, 25. Can you just talk to a little bit about how the Warriors have kind of remade the dynasty within the dynasty?
It's fascinating because who you ask, you may get a different answer, and I'll be as unbiased as possible and kind of see it from a bunch of different lenses. But the Warriors had an NBA championship caliber team when they made that James Wiseman pick, because Thompson was hurt. And as soon as Thompson came back and they added in a few free agents like, Gary Payton, who obviously was beneficial, and Otto Porter and Bielitsa and other role players, they were able to win another championship. But it's very rare that a team that's ready to compete for a championship right then and there and has years left in the tank, as we've seen with Curry and Draymond, that combo, and Wiggins too, has years left in the tank, gets a number 2 overall pick. Yeah. And they butchered it, man. Like they truly butchered it. They could have traded it. They could have traded back. They could have gone crazy and gotten Halliburton. There are plenty of other players in that draft that would have helped them more than Jimmy Wiseman. There's no doubt about that. So kind of butchered that one. Kuminga has been good, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's some all-star, and you took him with a top 10 pick, a lottery pick. Moses Moody just signed for, $13 million a year. He's not some max player. You took him with one of the last pick in the lottery. Podziemski's been a good pick as of right now, with where he was slotted in the draft and how young he is. And Moody's been good too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. He's been solid. It's just been nothing outstanding. But guys like Post, where you get him in the second round, and Santos, who's been a spark plug, where you get him in the second round, and I wouldn't lump Trace in there, but they just haven't really whiffed, right? Like they haven't struck gold on any of them. Like I wouldn't even say Kuminga is striking gold, because many Warriors fans would tell you they'd rather have Franz Wagner, who went after Kuminga, and probably has done more in his career at this point. But none of them are bad for the positions that you took them. Kuminga by no means a bust. Moses Moody may not be worth a top 20 draft pick, but he's been playing awesome defense as of late. He's been getting 35 minutes. And if there's one thing that I trust, it's that Steve Kerr knows a little basketball. And the fact that he went from playing Moody 13 minutes to 35 a game. Makes me think that he's starting to figure everything out truly. And then Pajemski has done kind of the little things. Post has been able to stretch the floor, and he was a throwaway 52nd pick, I believe it was, 54th pick. So, yeah, I mean, Santos, second round pick, and has given you serious minutes and has helped you gain some extra possessions that have truly won you games down the stretch. So, yeah, they haven't really whiffed aside from that Wiseman pick. And that's where you get a little young core that by itself is nothing to write home about. But when you surround it with Draymond Green and you surround it with Steph Curry and now Jimmy Butler, it's adequate for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because Wiseman was the high upside pick, and we've seen the Warriors. I think the Heat did this with Jaquez, and the Lakers really whiffed on Shafino. He was a high upside pick, and then Connect was kind of a pro-ready player that people talked about. Maybe didn't have the upside. I think we've seen a change in the NBA draft of not just taking high upside guys, taking guys that can come in and play. I think Moses Moody and Podziemski are really good examples of that because they always seem to be a thorn in the Lakers' side whenever they play. So, super exciting. But and then the last question just kind of ended on, in your opinion, Alan and I were talking about this. Is it important for the ratings that the Lakers, Warriors, Knicks, and Celtics and Bulls are good, or do you think that's kind of overblown? Because it feels like every time the Lakers or Warriors play, it's just a little bit different buzz, no matter if it's regular season or postseason.
I mean, I think if you get some of these teams in the postseason, these big markets, and you get a Final Four, a semifinals, or I guess a Western and Eastern Conference Finals, it's Lakers Warriors on one side, and then the other it's Knicks Celtics. I mean, you're going to get one of the most, and look at all the stars that are involved in that, especially in the Western Conference with Luka and Steph and Jimmy. I think if you get a Lakers Warriors series somehow, and potentially it's a 4-5. That would probably be the only first round matchup I can think of off the top of my head, but there's enough games left and close enough separation in the standings to where we could see some goofy matchups. But if we were to see it first or even second or in the Western Conference Finals, I mean, man, that's like, it would remind me a little bit of Dodgers Giants. Was it the wild card year where the Dodgers had won like 106 and the Giants had won like 108? And there was just a ton of buzz around that series going to the playoffs. I know the Warriors and Lakers played a few years back, but it's not like you've seen this often, and you've never seen it with Luka on the floor and Jimmy Butler too, who literally has gained a reputation and a nickname, Playoff Jimmy. So that's a storyline.
Yeah, I think it'd be electric. I can't wait. I know this game's massive because the Warriors only 2 games back at the Lakers. Even though the Lakers do have the tiebreaker, Lakers got to play Oklahoma City twice coming up here. So not a sure thing. But Charlie, I really appreciate you stopping by, man. It's great talking to you. And go check him out. Host of Locked On Warriors, does a kick-ass job up there in the Bay.
Absolutely, man. And on this page, like and subscribe, everyone. I'll do the advertising for you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.